GB 819 Substack exclusive. Section, Minimalism. Title, Who Can Realistically Resist the PMC, Professional Managerial Class? Subtitle, Why Minimalism is the Answer. Body, according to Grok, I stand out compared to other dissidents because I put a higher emphasis on minimalism and an anti-ambition attitude that treats upper-class zip codes and top-tier metros as the exact power centers that should be frozen out. To me the game itself is flawed and the goal is not to win, but to refuse to play. Other dissidents may be right-wing populists. They focus on critiquing Jewish influence and their politics center around white Gentiles. My approach is different. Minimalist attitudes and approaches are something that can and should be adopted by not just whites but people of color as well. The mainstream currents of Judaism do align with the PMC. What I mean by this is that most Jewish communities are not like Amish or Quakers, where the aim is to build a wall that insulates the community from the power of top-tier metros and public corporations. Instead, the mainstream attitude in Judaism focuses on rising into the top tiers of power. Thus someone with an anti-elite instinct may detour into anti-Semitism if not careful. There are two fatal errors with reducing everything to Jews, even if Jews do hold more power than their population size suggests. The first error is that if Jews are opposed in an assembly line way that treats ancestry as identifying immutable characteristics, then no opening exists to capitalize on the defectors, and in any community there are defectors. Just as important, this misguided reductionist ideology that centers anti-Semitism will mislead people into thinking that a solution exists in the PMC itself, but the solution involves reaching out to the Gentiles in the PMC. This gets it backwards. The PMC is the main problem, not just a symptom of another problem. We can thoroughly rule out any possibility of resistance in publicly traded companies and the political arms of these companies such as mainstream media and the Democratic Party establishment, or other establishment center-left parties in other Western countries. With that in mind, the question then turns to people who come from private capital, but large-scale private capital. To an extent the large private companies can resist the PMC, but the position of them to openly counter-signal the PMC varies. We also now have evidence that people cut from this mold can still sell out. Trump proved this and I was always aware. While large private companies that are unlisted on the stock market may be able to play a role, the much larger resistance will come from the small business sector and hardcore minimalists. Many good examples of hardcore minimalists are religious communities, but my deist religious views conflict here. Another factor is that I am not totally anti-technology. I still think it is worth it to have a cheap, run-down budget car, in most parts of the US, and an internet connection to disseminate your message. Because of these philosophical and religious differences, I cannot just join the Amish, despite growing up near them, but I indeed can use them as an example to prove my concept. You can refuse to play the game. You can reject society's definition of success. The only option is not winning, not playing is another option. You can opt out. Back to my ideology, I differ from other dissidents in that I both promote a three-class ideology, PMC, owners, workers, instead of two, and I heavily wrap my class analysis to a minimalist ideology in a way that most socialists do not. Take for example Revcom.us. Bob Avakian is always suggesting that a revolution is right around the corner. My approach is different. I stress minimalism unusually hard for a class-based dissident. My approach is that you should detest and avoid top-tier metros and those zip codes and refuse to play the game at all. Thus the mentality I promote is about building a nucleus and living to fight another day, not promising a revolution. Certainly not around the corner. Whether tactics down the road will be revolutionary or democratic in the long run remains to be seen, and whether this change will happen in our lifetimes also remains to be seen. The focus is on what to do now, and that includes three techniques. 1. Radical minimalism. Do not win the game of social status. Refuse to play. 2. Internet attack. Publish content on the internet and make trolling cool again. 3. Reject the herd. To succeed, you must zig when others zag. Grok verified that my approach stands out, even among hardened dissidents, as counter-signaling mainstream society and society's ambitions much harder than others. That is not an accident, it is intentional and will continue. On the other hand, though I lead the charge, I do not feel the message finds no reception at all among the dissident communities that I originally emerged from and that I am now targeting. The time period when modern social media came up convinced me that I must zig, while others zag, and the ideal target is people who do not agree with how social media aesthetics have changed the internet and are actively looking to counter-signal that. This brings me full circle. I am targeting the same type of hardened user who is resistant to conformity that birthed me in the bulletin board era. That is why most of us are putting past conflicts and feuds in the rearview mirror. Conformity exposed itself on a grand stage with modern social media, and the opponents of conformity should not buy tickets to sit in the seats but build their own alternatives. I will not detour this reflection into another analysis about hypergamy, which is straying off topic. However, minimalism must be supported, full stop, and the increased dating options that come with corporate access for corporate cogs cannot be used as an excuse to conform or attempt to. In many situations it would not even matter. If you have lived minimally for long enough, the public corporations do not want you if you have enough independent thought to have initially hesitated about joining their lifestyle. Conformists do not accept people who hesitate and then later try to jump on a train they missed. However, in my case there is no hesitation. I am a minimalist, I promote it more heavily than most class-heavy analysts, and I am in fact not hesitating. GB 819 of X and Substack. Slight changes were made in the video version to optimize for that format.